All right, so our session is now in progress. So, good morning, everyone, and also to folks that might be joining internationally from Europe or Asia, good evening. Thank you for joining. Today, our session is part 2 of Create a Life That Totally Rocks. This is a career coaching session and a continuum from a very engaging session we had about a month ago with Dr. Michelle Chappell. My name is Elaine Kwok. I am the Worldwide Awareness and Evangelism Lead in Women in Big Data. I'm also joined today by Stella, who is our meetup host, and Shala, who is one of our original founders. We are very.
So we're saying we want
someone who might need to put themselves on mute. We're very honored to be joined by Dr. Michelle Chappell today, who some of you have already met after part 1. She has a number of superpower sessions that she can meet with you and discuss more in-depth examples and conversations. Some of you had the privilege to do that already. But today, what we'll be doing is a continuation from part 1. The first session, she talked about how to find your inner superhero, in that, what is it that distinguishes you and makes you unique from your natural talents. Today's part 2 session is more about how do you use that internal reflection to get centered, to balance the heart and mind, and really go after your dreams and think big. Especially during this time where we are all adjusting to the current events, the pandemic, shelter in place is starting to lift. It's also a time where we can think and reflect and, kind of reset and think about what we really want to do. So with that, again, I just want to remind folks that, we do welcome not only chat in the chat window, but conversation, discussion. Michelle will welcome folks to chime in for breakout sessions. So if you're comfortable, we do encourage you to turn on your videos or at least show a photo. And with that, I will hand it over to Michelle. So here we go.
Thanks, Elaine. Yes, I think we haven't figured out how to be able to do breakout sessions, but we definitely want to be able to talk to you. So I'm honored and happy to be here this morning. For me, I'm in Portland, Oregon. This is 8 a.m. My brain doesn't usually start working till 9, so hopefully this will make sense to you guys. So before I get started, I wanted to ask you to reach for a pen and a pad of paper, because I'm going to be asking you some questions that I am going to ask you to write answers down for and later share with each other. And I've found that when I do these interactive workshops, that when people share answers with each other, they inspire each other and they reach higher for their dreams. So I really, really appreciate that. And we don't mind if you're wearing pajamas. If you want to turn your video on, that would be awesome, or put a picture up, as Elaine said. So we'll get started. Let me just see here. Yeah, okay. So this is the second part of a 2-part talk. And as Elaine said, the first time we got together about a month ago, we talked about how to find talents and skills that you may not know that you have, and then figure out ways to use them to distinguish yourself at work. Today, we're going to talk about how to make goals, and how to make goals that really matter to you, how to make goals that are reachable, and also how to balance your life. Because when you just focus on your professional life, it's easy to ignore your personal life. And the truth is when you have them in balance, you do better at work than when you don't. So I will get started here. For those of you who were on the call a month ago, you've heard my story, so I won't go into a lot of detail and try not to say the same stories. I do want to tell you a little bit about myself to help you understand where I'm coming from. I've been lucky enough to succeed in a number of different careers, and it seems that each career I succeed in, the way I did it in one worked for another. So I want to share what I've learned with you today. So I have a PhD in cognitive psychology from Princeton University. I was studying very hard there, barely got any sleep while I was there, dark rings under my eyes. And I remember once one of the professors I was working with asked me to set up his classroom the night before. It was going to be the beginning of the 100 people. And I don't know how many of you know who Brooke Shields is, but Brooke Shields happened to be going to Princeton at the time, and he was nervous, and he wanted to make sure everything was perfect for her and the class. And so I went in the night before, and I was testing equipment, and I turned on the microphone and checked it. And for some reason, it was dark outside. There's a reason why I'm telling this story. For some reason, I took it upon myself to start singing into the mic. And I was really kind of blown away by how great my voice sounded. And I didn't know I could sing. So that was a revelation to me. But here I was at Princeton, you know, really tough school to get into. I was there to study psychology. So it didn't really fit in with who I thought I was supposed to be. So I pretty much forgot all about it. Went on to become a professor of psychology. So you can see a picture of me over there on the left. I taught at Santa Clara University. I taught at University of California, Santa Cruz. I loved my students so much. I got good teaching evaluations, won awards, but I always felt like something was missing. Something felt, I don't know, like there's something more for me, but I don't know what it is. And I'm sharing that with you because I wonder if that's true for you. And if it is okay, because it's a sign that you're capable of doing even more than you're doing now. So my students used to ask me for advice about what to do with their lives. I would always tell them to follow their hearts. And they seemed so relieved. And then one day I realized I wasn't following my own heart. And if I was going to be really, really true to myself, what I wanted to do was to be a rock star. I wanted to honor that voice that came out that evening on the campus of Princeton University. So I decided to take that seriously finally. And I taught during the day, and I was a musician at night. And eventually I left full time academics to become a rock star. And I did it for many years. I'm still putting CDs out. And I just wanted to share that story with you because I followed my dream and I have absolutely no regrets that I did that. I didn't become Beyonce, but I didn't do bad. I've won 17 Billboard Awards. I have 8 or 9 CDs out. I've had songs on the radio. And as a professor, I loved being a professor. As I said, I won, I think, most inspirational professor award. I loved those two careers. And I remember when I was on tour in South Africa, a radio DJ asked me, "Do you think you'll ever go back to teaching?" And I thought, absolutely not. You know, I'm a rock star now. I'm happening. Why would I want to do that? But you know, when I came back to the United States, I realized I did miss teaching. Only what I wanted to do now was I wanted to teach people how to find their superpowers, gifts and talents they didn't know that they have. Because see, I didn't know I could sing until later in life, and I kind of figured out a way to help people find talents that they may not know that they have yet. And I wanted to inspire them to follow paths that really fit well for them. So
We have much noise on the line.
Yeah, we have someone needs to mute.
Yeah, just mute for now. But if you want to, if you want to talk later or ask a question, feel free. I'm very open to interaction. It's just there's a little noise in the background.
Yeah,
Thank
a lot
you.
of noise. A lot of noise. Regina, is that you?
Yes, let's point fingers. That's a great way to start the morning.
It's okay. I can do that to Regina.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's fine.
Go for it.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear. It sounds like it's a little quieter. So, so I went on to teach these workshops. So this is career number 3. That's me on the left. That picture just happens to have guys in it. I teach women, more so women than men, but both. And I've done that for 20 years. And I've worked with about 10,000 people, and I've helped them to find their individual gifts and had a lot of success with that. It's been a beautiful, beautiful, awesome career. However, again, full transparency, I could not make enough money between having albums coming out and teaching these workshops. And I did a lot of these careers at the same time. I could not make enough money to live in Silicon Valley. As you know, it's an expensive place. So I ended up going into high tech. And I have a PhD in cognitive psychology, so that translated very well into becoming either a market researcher or a usability engineer, and I've done both. But at first, I just thought that, this is a way to make money, and I'll just keep doing my stuff that I really love on the side. But I ended up staying in high tech. I'm still in it actually for 20 years as well. And funny enough, I did really well in that career. So I started out as a junior usability engineer, and I made it all the way up to VP of Consumer Insights for a company in London. And then I decided I would rather be an independent consultant than work full time. And so that's what I've been doing the last few years. So this is sort of my backstory, just for you to understand where I'm coming from. And a couple of questions. If I could see all of you in front of me, but I can't, but I'm just very curious. And I'm just curious how many of you feel happy with your careers right now, just the way it is. I mean, are you happy? Are you content where you are? And if you are, that's great. Um, if you're not, that's okay too, because the other question I wanted to ask you is, do you feel like you're capable of doing something more than you're doing now? And I don't mean adding hours to your schedule, more of your gifts, or you using more of your passion. Is there something else you would like to do besides what you're doing right now? Or would you like to bring more of yourself to what you're doing right now? And this is what I want to sort of open up your mind and heart to today. And I want to help you figure out how to do that. I wanted to tell you that where I'm at right now is I'm living in Portland, Oregon, and I'm writing a book. Oh, I finished writing a book about how to help people find their superpowers. And I have an agent who is shopping that book right now to publishers. And I wanted to share sort of a vulnerable story with you, but I'm doing it for a reason. Last year, I was, if you're going to have a book come out, they want you to be somebody that you have to have, they call it a platform. And so, under the encouragement of my agent, I was flying around the country giving talks. I was singing around the country. I just come back from Portland after being in San Jose and then Seattle, and I was about to be on television. I was blogging for Lifehack, and I remember I was taking a walk on a Sunday afternoon, and I was thinking to myself, I've got too much going on. This is, I've had a lot going on in the past, but this feels like too much. I'm not sure how I can do it all. And as I was walking up a hill, these bright lights shined before me, and I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to faint? I mean, I thought I was in better shape than that. So I braced myself for a fall, but then I did not faint. And so I didn't know what had just happened to me. So I instinctively closed one eye and then I closed the other. And I realized that I had lost significant vision in my left eye. And of course, 2 days later, I went ahead and did my TV interview on schedule. Go away. It did not go away. And after I finally got to myself to the doctor, what I learned was that I had had a stroke. Not a stroke in my brain, but a stroke in my eye. I didn't even know that was a thing. One of my veins is blocked, and so the blood is shut off, and so my vision was affected. And as you can imagine, that affected my life. And you might think that affected my life in a terrible way, but actually it affected my life in a good way, because it allowed me to stand back and see the bigger picture of my life and who I am and what I want to be. And yes, I've switched careers a lot of times, and yes, I've been successful in all of them. But one of the things that I wasn't taking into account as much as I needed to was balancing out my career with my personal life, which is why I really want to stress the importance of doing both. And so I am going to share with you now method I came up with. It's already come out in a couple of blogs out on Lifehack and another one, and I call it the Envision Method. And I'm just going to go over sort of the top lines of what I do. And it's a really great way of finding out how to succeed at work, but also be happy and content in your personal life at the same time. So I love to spell out things. Last time it was empower. Just basically, the questions that I'm going to be going through is the end game is, where do you want to be in the future? How do you create effective sub goals to reach that bigger goal? What really matters to you? How can you make time for inspiration? How can you orient your life around your strengths? How can you spend more time with friends and family? How can you be more honest about your feelings? And how can you nurture activities that bring you joy? So I want to start, and be ready with your pens and pads because I'm going to ask you to answer these questions in a few minutes, but not quite yet because I'd like to go over them with you. So the first one, E for envision, start with the end in mind. And maybe some of you have seen this approach before. It's a very effective one. So what you do is you ask yourself where you want to be in the future. And we're going to do this in a minute. It doesn't have to be 5 years. It can be 3 years. It can even be 2 years, just some point in the future. And believe me, I understand this may be a weird time to be setting goals because of the global pandemic, and we don't really know. Actually, one of the reasons why it's very good to think about what's important to you and what matters to you. But also it might be, it might be hard for you to think, where do I want to be in 2 years? But just take a stab at it. And I will give you some hints and clues for how you can just sort of take it step by step too, so that you don't feel overwhelmed with it. So where do you want to be in the future? And then because you're asking that bigger question, you're looking at your life from a broader perspective. Which means that you're going to probably be setting a goal for yourself that's important, that matters. And then you work your way backwards. So where would you like to be in 1 year relative to that? And then 3 months relative to 1 year, and 1 month, then 1 week. And then what small action can you take today? And why this is really effective is because you're going to come up with one small action that you can take today. And I'm going to ask you to try it. So let me share with you, I actually gave a talk similar to this about 3 months ago, I think, in California, and Elaine was there. And I shared a story with her and her group then that I'll share with you. But there's been an evolution on it since. But so when I asked myself, honestly, where would I like to be in 5 years from now if I could wave a magic wand? I'd like to be a best-selling author of 2 books that inspire millions of people to find their superpowers and thrive in work and life. That may seem like a big-ass goal. It is a big-ass goal. That's why I'm sharing it with you. And it's vulnerable to share such a big goal with you because who knows whether it will happen or not. But I'm sharing that with you because I want to show you how I took a big goal like that and made it manageable. Because I want you to think big too, as we'll talk about more in a minute. So sometimes when you're doing this approach, you can go from 5 to 1 year to 3 months, but sometimes it's useful just to jump down to the one small action, or to skip a couple steps. So I went to 1 year first, and I said, all right, well, where would I want to be in 1 year? Well, I'd like to have a publishing deal, and I'd like to have my manuscript turned into the publisher by then, because it usually takes about a year. And oh, you know what? I'd like to be on Oprah's radar. I know, again, big ass goal. Crazy, right? Oprah's radar. Everybody wants to be on Oprah's radar. Who do you think you are, little girl? And I'm wondering if that sounds familiar to you. That is your inner critic talking. So, okay, that's where people usually freeze. Nice thinking. Good idea. I'm going to just now join my friends and not think about this anymore because I can't handle it. Well, what one small action can you take today? I thought, how do I start? Well, I could Google, how do you get on Oprah? That's easy. I mean, we all have laptops or phones in front of us, or, so I Googled, how can you get on Oprah? And sure enough, there's a woman out there who helps people get on Oprah for a one-time fee, And so I didn't sign up with her, but I did listen to what she had to say. And she said, one of the things she said is, get to know Oprah. And I already get O Magazine, but so what did I do the next week? I Googled Oprah interviews. And this is why I'm sharing this with you. This was at the very beginning of this year. It was in January. And she had kicked off this Vision 2020 tour. And her first guest was, I think I'm pronouncing her name right, Stephanie Germanotta, as you may know as Lady Gaga. And I watched that interview, and Stephanie had said that she had created Lady Gaga as a superhero to which she would aspire, because she had been bullied as a girl and she was very unsure of herself. And Oprah asked her questions about, what do you think your superpowers are? And I had never seen Oprah talk about superpowers before. So I was just like, wow, maybe I'm onto something. Okay, so that's enough about me. I just wanted to share that to inspire you. I want you to aim high. We're about to do this. I want you to aim high. I love this quote by Michelangelo. The greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aims too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. I want you to shoot for the stars. This is a graph that shows CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. And as you can see, it depends on how you want to look at this. Tiny orange bars are we're averaging about of the positions, and the sea of gray bars are men. And you can ask, why even bother? Why even try? Not that I'm just using this as an example. I'm not saying that you guys have to want to be a female CEO. Right?
Michelle, we have a hard time to hear
to
you.
hear you,
Oh, you do?
At least on my
at least on
side.
my side.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, okay.
That's good.
I just move it closer. Okay, sorry about that, you guys.
No,
So,
that's
yeah. So, but another way to look at this, like the half glass full, is right now 37 women lead Fortune 500 companies, and that's up from 33 last year, and that was a record high. There's an opening here. There's movement here. So don't give up. Okay? Don't give up. Really think, what do you want? Ask yourself what you really want. Now, 80% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by February. That is a fact. And one of the reasons for that is because they shoot so high, it's too high, they don't know how to reach it. But if you have a plan for how to reach your lofty goals, you can reach them by chunking them down. So that's what I want to talk to you about next. And then I'm going to have you do this exercise. So Envision, right? N is nested goals. So you've got your big goal now. And how do you accomplish it? The first thing you want to do is be specific about when, where, and how. And in a way, you are already kind of are doing that when you say where you want to be in 5 years and 1 year and so on. So you're already kind of doing that. But just keep in mind that the more specific you can be about your goals, setting them for a date and that sort of thing, the more likely you're going to reach them. Another thing that's really important is that your goals are positive. So, if you're one of the people that was thinking, no, I don't like my job that much, I actually hate my job, you don't want to focus on that part. You don't want to focus on hating your job as much as you want to focus on what it is you want. So if you want to do something different or you want to climb the ladder from where you are, set that intention, or if you want to switch into a different field, like maybe you want to do big data for online education, maybe you want to work with like-minded people, just write that out, make it positive. Another thing that's important is to create goals that are measurable. So, like I said, I've taught workshops for 20 years. I work with all kinds of people. I work with artists, I work with people in tech, all kinds of people, but this is the kind of goal that when somebody makes it, they're not going to do it unless you ask them to make a plan. And this is what I hear a lot from people who are artists who take my workshops, and that is, I want to write a book. Okay, I don't know if you have a book in you, you probably do, so many people do, but if you say, I want to write a book, honestly, you're probably not going to do it. Why? It's too big. It's too big. Well, I'll tell you the way I have written a book. You know how you do it? You make a very specific goal, such as I would like to write 2 hours a day, 4 days a week, and then you put it on your calendar and you mark it out and you turn your phone off. So does that make, I hope that's making sense. I can't really see you guys, but that's a couple more things. Celebrate your victories, because if you are going to set goals for yourself that are really meaningful, that are higher than where you are now, you're probably going to fail, and that is absolutely normal. Oprah has a nice way of framing it. She says, failure is just the universe trying to move you in a different direction. Use it as feedback. But also celebrate your victory. So honestly, when I watched that interview with Lady Gaga and saw that they were talking about superpowers, I did a happy dance in my living room. I did. I took a moment to let that land because I thought I might be on the right track. This is awesome. Also, because you're very likely to fail here and there, it's really important, and a lot of SMART goals doesn't talk about this. A lot of people don't talk about this, but it's very important to come up with plan Bs, alternative pathways to your goals. So when you make a goal, you can already have a plan B. Some people do it that way, or you can just know you may need to come up with one. So I will share one more story about myself, and then I'm going to have you dig in. But when at the time that I was first giving this talk to Elaine's group, I had just had a story accepted by HuffPost. They told me it was going to come out on the weekend. I was so excited. It was my first article with them. It's hard to get in there. I told all my friends and family, all my followers, this article is coming out. This is the date. And then it didn't come out. It didn't come out. And I was just like, what happened? And I didn't know why. And then again, I have some vision trouble. So I missed the email. I found it later that told me, where they wrote to me and they told me that they decided to kill the story. And that language is so hard. Kill the story. I'm like, oh. That they had been changing direction, and it didn't necessarily fit the format of where they were going. And I remember thinking to myself that that might be true because they were getting more sensationalistic, and my story wasn't really that. So yeah, I was sad. I was really, really sad, and kind of like, oh, I told my friends. But you know what? After a couple of days of dragging around, the editor there got a hold of me and she said, Michelle, this story is yours. And she had worked on it with me too. And she said, this is yours. You can do anything you want to. She liked it, and she's a big fan, and I'm still on their roster. And she said, you can shop it anywhere you want. And you know where I'm going to shop it when things calm down? Oprah. Because it's actually, I realize now, it's a better fit for her than for HuffPost. So I share that story with you. Just, this is how you keep going. And if Oprah doesn't take it, somebody else will, because it's a good story. So now I want to ask you to take a moment, take your pen out, take your pad out, and please do this exercise. Where would you like to be in 5 years? In 1 year, 3 months, 1 month, 1 week, in small action. And remember, you can come at it from both sides if that's easiest. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes to do that now. So I hope that was enough time for you guys to do that. One thing I wanted to do is share some information with you about what you do with your goals to make them actually come true. After having studied a little bit with Jack Canfield, who wrote The Success Principles and also Chicken Soup of the Soul. I'm sure some of you or most of you have heard of that. He shared this wonderful piece of research that shows there were four different groups of people. One thought about their goals. Second group also wrote down their goals, which you just did. The third group also shared their goals with a friend. And then the fourth group, in addition to that, made a weekly progress report to a friend. It's great to get a buddy doing this. So as you can see, the success rate goes up as you add on each of these. So I'm not sure if there's any brave soul out there who wants to share their goals or their maybe the small action that they could take, but I would love to hear from somebody because if you share, first of all, it's going to make it more likely for you to achieve your goals, but also it's going to inspire other people who are listening. Does anybody want to share what their big goal was and or the small action they could take? Anybody? Anything surprising? Anybody?
Well, there are
Well,
Miss
there
Miss
are
Shallow.
Shallow.
By the way, am I
By the way,
coming
am I
with
coming
a lot of
with a lot of
echo?
echo? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
Oh,
echo
Okay,
is
so
just
it's
on my
echo is
side.
just on my side.
So it's not going to come.
I hear your echo as well.
Right. So
Right.
I
So
was going to
I
talk,
was
but
gonna
I'm going to
talk, but
stop.
I'm gonna stop.
oh.
So much echo. Someone
So much
else go.
echo. Someone else go.
Somebody else want to share?
Well, I can share
Well, I can
the
share the
small immediate goal I need to
goal I
do,
need to do,
Okay, yes, please.
and I can hear
and I
myself
can hear
twice.
myself twice.
So
Oh, I
So-
think that's happening with everybody, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
So my
my
small
small
action
action
is
is to
contact a
contact a
friend
friend
and ask her
and
about.
ask her about.
Oh, can I hear myself
Can I hear
twice?
myself
Sorry.
twice? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry that that's happening.
Okay. I'll
Okay,
do this.
I'll do this.
So contact a friend and ask her about if you know
if you
someone
know
in a
someone in a
company that has a
company that has a
job opening.
job
'Cause
opening. Because
I'm actually
I'm
not
actually
working.
not
I'm
working.
looking
I'm
for a
looking
job.
for a job.
And
Okay.
with
And
this situation,
with this
it's going to be a
situation, it's
lot
going to be a
harder
lot
because
harder because
I'm coming back
I'm coming back from
7, it's now
7,
8
it's now 8
years
years
of not
of
working,
not
staying
working,
home,
staying
being
at
a
home,
stay-at-home
being a
mom.
stay-at-home mom.
So my small action
So
is
my
just
small action is just
contacting one person
contacting
that
one
I
person
think
that I
knows
think
someone in
knows
that
someone in
company.
that company.
That's great. That's great. And I hope you do it this week, actually. Are you in high tech?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, okay. So the good news with high tech is high tech jobs are doing a lot better than a lot of other jobs. I mean, they're still out there. I still get pinged by recruiters every once in a while during the pandemic. So it's one of the better careers to be in. And the other thing I just wanted to share with you is that I have a good friend who was a stay-at-home mom, got out of high tech for a few years to raise her kids and was worried about coming back, thinking that it would impede her progress. It did not. And in fact, she got better job opportunities than she had had before and has ended up at Facebook and Apple. So I would just like to encourage you to believe in yourself and believe in the possibility of getting back in the market and doing just fine, because I've seen people do it.
Okay, thanks.
So
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Did anybody else want to share? Any other brave soul? Okay. Well, I also wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about how important it is to balance out. Remember, with the vision loss that I had, it really made me realize that I was out of balance. I was really out of balance. And I think in a way, I broke my eye because I was so out of balance. So it's very, very important for you even with your professional goals, to look at the rest of your life and how it's all going to work together. And so I'm on the vision part of Envision now, and I'm skipping ahead to superpowers, the S for superpowers. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because I already gave a whole talk on how to find your superpowers, but there's 3 different things that you can do. And I think Elaine's going to be sharing links now in the chat box if you want to investigate these. One is something called Clifton Strengths. It's put together by Gallup. It costs $50. You can get online and answer questions, and it's 34 predetermined talents and skills, and it will tell you which 5 you are at the top of. Those are things like achiever, analytical, focused, learner, strategic. And then there's also character strengths. This comes from positive psychology, uh, and it's free. It's 24 character strengths. These are things like social intelligence and creativity and leadership and hope. And again, tells you your top 5. And then there's also superpowers, which is what I teach. Elaine's gonna put up a link for the talk I gave, which has empower questions. And basically, after teaching people for 20 years, I know for a fact that no 2 people are alike in terms of their talents and skills. So you've got talents like painting, you have skills like coding, and you also have just a way of being. Maybe you walk into a room and you're able to lead it effortlessly, that sort of thing. So if you want to find more out about that side of yourself, I encourage you to check out one of those links and dive in. But for the rest of this talk, I want to just cover. It's so funny how appropriate it is for our times right now. But there was a beautiful book that came out many years ago called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware, who has worked with people in hospice who, she helped them to die well. And she listened to what they said, that they were not feeling too good about in their lives, things that they had regrets about. And I wanted to share those things with you now because it turns out that you may have one of these right now and you can do something about it. So the top regret of people on their deathbed was that they did not live the life of their dreams. They didn't follow their hearts. This is not one of my regrets, obviously, but it is a big regret. I don't regret not that going into music, even if I didn't become Beyonce or Lady Gaga. It's okay. I've loved every minute of it. Still do it. But I've noticed that a lot of people take my workshops because um, they don't know what they want to do with their lives because they're actually living somebody else's idea of who they should be. I had one student named Lynn who took a Reinventing Yourself workshop from me, and she hated her career. And so and I asked her, how did you get into it? And she said, oh, she was a dental hygienist, and she said, oh, I became a dental hygienist because my sister became one. And my sister became one because it was career day in high school. And everybody was sitting around in a circle. And the girl sitting next to her said, hey, why don't you become a dental hygienist? There's money in that. And so that's why my sister became one. And then my sister went on to marry a wealthy dentist and has never had to, do it for most of her life. But I'm stuck here with this career and I hate it. So she didn't choose it. So a lot of people don't realize how they are influenced by parents and siblings and the culture they live in. Silicon Valley, it's a lot of pressure to get a high tech job. Um, but it's really important to get clear on your values because this is the number one regret of people on their deathbed. Second regret is that they worked so hard. Um, and this may ring true for you. It certainly rings true for me, and it rings true for a lot of people. This is where if you find your superpowers and you find out that you're good at painting, for example, or playing the piano, and you might think, well, that's nice, but that's not going to help me in my career. But it will help you in your career. Actually, first of all, it'll help you in your life if you make time for a hobby, just to rejuvenate yourself and replenish yourself. That's an example of something you can do besides just working all the time. But also, there's research from San Francisco State University that shows that if people who have a creative outlet outside of work actually do better at work, they get promoted more often, they get better evaluations from managers and from customers. They're better problem solvers, they're better team players. So it's there's a couple of good reasons to make time for inspiration. The third regret of the dying is that they wish they'd express their true feelings instead of stuffing them down to keep the peace. I ended up moving back to Atlanta a few years ago after my father died. I did not have a very good childhood. And I found at that time in my life that it was really important for me to tell my mother um, what life looked like for me, even though she had a different view, thought everything was rosy. It was really hard for me to continue forward with us not ever discussing it. This may not be something that comes up for you now, but it may come up for you later. It comes up at different times in life. But here's the thing: if you don't express yourself emotionally, don't say something, a truth about how you feel, it can hurt your health later on. It stays stuck in your body, and that can actually, obviously hurt your career too. So you can write a letter, uh, write an email, maybe talk to them on the phone, maybe even be meet at a place that's safe. It's not about them accepting your reality or agreeing with you or getting closer. That may not even happen. What's more important is that you just get it out of your system. You don't even have to send the letter. The fourth regret of the dying is that they wish that they'd stayed in touch with their friends. Uh, I was trying to spell out Envision, and there's no F in Envision, and I thought friends and family. What do I do? But then I saw, the word intimates. Intimates is that'll work. Well, and I thought I was just sort of forcing it, but it turns out that intimates is a very good word for it. And so the idea here is that it's important for you to spend time with people who you are intimate with, that you trust, people who have your back, people who you can really be your true self around, people that you can say, tell them what you're going through, even when you're not looking that great, maybe even to yourself. It's really important to make time for those sorts of people in your life. And I have a friend, Suzanne, we've known each other for years. We have not lived in the same place for years, but we talk on the phone all the time. So it's possible to do this, and it's important to do this. And the last one is that the last regret, the fifth regret of the dying, is that they wish they'd let themselves be happier. And by this, if you dig in deeper, it means that they wish that they wouldn't have let themselves stay stuck in old patterns or pretended to be happier, to be content where they are when they weren't. So being in a marriage that really wasn't working, or a job that they didn't really like, or hanging out with friends who maybe, criticized them or weren't that great of friends. Um, so this regret invites you to just think about if there's something in your life that, if you don't really like your job, you don't have to stay in the job you're in. If you're wondering about personal relationships, make it a goal to examine them and maybe see a counselor, or do something, set a goal around it to get closure around it, or to move through it rather than stay stuck. So I wanted just to represent this to you, and we're going to close in a few minutes, but I just would really like you to look at these 5 regrets here and think about yourself right now, and just ask yourself, which of these regrets might stand out as most important to you right now? And maybe Maybe you have all of them, I don't know. But maybe one stands out more than the other. So, for me, I'm definitely living my dream. That's not one. You work too hard, that was true for me. But now my eye has slowed me down, and that's not true anymore. Expressing your true feelings, you don't spend enough time with friends, you feel stuck and don't let yourself be happy. So, why don't you just take a second to just choose one of these and think about what small step you could take this week to address that so that it doesn't become a regret later in life. Why don't you go ahead and do that and write that down? And again, remember, if you write it down, it's more likely that you're going to do it.
Right, and as folks are doing that, just want to keep in mind that the first hour will be presentation, and then second half will be discussion format.
Yeah, if anybody wants to dive deeper into anything, I'll be happy to stick around and do that. So, which regret would you like to tackle? What small step can you take this week? This is maybe a more vulnerable place to come from. So I don't know if anybody feels comfortable sharing, but if they do, the small step even, I would love to hear it. And if not, I will share mine. Does anybody want to try?
Elaine, I'm sorry. I don't know still what this echo is, but Michelle, let me tell you something. When several 5 years ago, so I wanted to actually start a bakery because that's what I love to do. But then I had to just leave it behind because of the family reasons. We have to move from, I was in Portland, of course. And then we had and then I had to just leave it behind. So sometimes, it's not you, it's the whole, environment, family, expectation that makes it very difficult. So I don't know, when you talk about, changing, maybe a small thing is different than, really try to be only thinking about yourself and what makes you happy, because there are other people that count.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, a couple of things that I can say to that is that, first of all, you don't know where you're going to be 20 years from now, and you may get a chance to do that again. You don't, I sometimes I've seen people in my workshops reach new goals and have new, like, reinvent themselves to have new lives in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. So sometimes it's a timing thing. So I wouldn't completely let go of that, actually. But also in your day-to-day life, if there's something about being, owning a bakery or baking, or a way to incorporate that in your life, baking at home more, like, you don't want to completely, if you can, you don't need to completely slough it off or not do it anymore. So sometimes, and there's also sometimes you have to let go of things. Like, I will never be a rock star on a stage of Lady Gaga's caliber, for example. But I am very happy that I have done what I have done. So, there's coming to terms with that as well. But I would really say that if it's a situation like that, Shala, and for other people, to reach deep inside and find out, what is it about having a bakery that really makes your heart sing? Because you might be able to take a little piece of that and put it in your life right now, and you're going to be happier that way. Okay, so we're right at the end here. So let's see here. So we have a professional plan and a small goal that you can take on that, and a personal plan and a small goal that you can take on that. And here, this is the way you actually achieve goals, is by starting with a single step. It's the best way, because it's a lot of times people don't achieve their goals because they just have trouble getting momentum. They have trouble getting started. But it's taking, uh, making that phone call to a friend and asking about a possible job position, or even finding out, what's your career looking like in the world that we live in today, because a lot of times fields change over time. That's a huge step, but it's also a small step. It's a doable step, and then that can lead very nicely to the next step. When your friend mentions something that, sets turns the light bulb on, oh, I could ask another friend this, or yeah, I used to really like this, I could look into it more, that sort of thing. So one thing leads to another. So I really encourage you to take that first step, and then let it show you where the next step should be. I mean, definitely we have a bigger plan. Where do you want to be in 3 months? But sometimes it's also nice to put some space in there and just see what comes up. Like what, if your friend says, I know this company is hiring, then the next step would be to put a resume together and maybe send it to that company, that sort of thing. So follow the breadcrumb trail. And so for anybody who wants to stay on, I could dig into this deeper and also talk about the importance of making a mission statement to really get the life that you want. But I would just like to close with saying thank you for being here this morning. And if you want to find out more about how to find your superpowers, or how to move forward in your career or change careers, you can sign up for a free superpower session with me by going to my website or going to this email address here. I can also send you a free PDF of Finding Your Superpowers with other stories in there of other women I've helped over the years and how they found theirs. And then also, if you want to share your story with me, I'm always looking for interesting stories of people who have transformed their lives or are in the middle of transforming their lives. So I'm always curious to hear more. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your spending time with us this morning.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Michelle.
so much, Michelle.
So I'm going to try an experiment right now where there was a suggestion in the audience, Michelle, if I mute you and whoever's speaking is unmuted, it seems to kill the echo. So I've just, as an experiment, muted you, Michelle, just to see. It seems to be transmitting a lot better. But while it's working, I just want to take a moment to thank you so much for taking the time to give such rich, insightful examples and stories. And it's just so inspiring to hear your story, from how it's seeded, with Lady Gaga and Oprah, to something that can be broken down to, a Google search, right? Something we can all do today. So I am now going to unmute you back and mute myself. And perhaps if we rotate in this way, then we'll be able to hear folks jump in a lot better, because I do want to be able to have that rich storytelling from the audience. And, for example, when Shala opened up and said her dream was opening a bakery, so was mine. So maybe it's a sign from the universe why we're having these conversations. So I'm going to unmute you back, Michelle, and mute myself. And hopefully if we pass the baton this way, it will be easier for everyone. So here I'm unmuting Michelle and I'm muting myself.
I love that. Maybe that's one of the reasons why you're friends. Seriously, it's interesting how, I'm in Portland and I'm in a new place. And so I'm making new friends, and it's interesting to see what connects us and why do we like each other. And you know each other for a while, and yeah, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, we both wanted to do that, or we both have written books, or we both, that sort of thing. So we're such rich people. There's so much to us. And that's one of the things that I'll just talk for a little while. And if you guys have questions, if you want me to dig in with you personally about how to, figure out a good next move for you, or integrate a passion into your life, I am here for you, seriously. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say that I think one of the things that is easy to forget about in the work world is, when you go to work, and I spoke about this in the other talk, a lot of times there's a lot of pressure on us to leave a lot of who we are behind. And since we put in such long work hours, we start to forget those other parts of ourselves. But the truth is that when you start to integrate them back into your life, you do better. So, for example, just to make sure that I'm being completely honest with you, here I am telling you to have a balanced life, but for a couple of years when I was writing my book, I stopped playing music. And that was sort of that was a hobby that turned into a full-time career. But I stopped doing it because I found it hard to write songs and write a book. But you know what? I started getting like losing my patience. I wasn't as happy as I usually am. And I finally started picking up, like I started to learn how to play the piano with this pandemic, just for a few minutes every day. And when I noticed that just from doing a few minutes of playing piano every day, I am so much happier. And also, I have more creative insights about my book and about my life and where I want to go next. So it's really important to integrate these different parts of yourself into your life, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. So I just like to, really encourage people. Does anybody have a question or anything that you would like to share? If you want to do it through chat, that's okay too. But anything that you want to ask me?
So I don't see any messages on chat yet, but folks, if you want to just go ahead and mute yourself and chime in. And then, Michelle, if you mute yourself while they're speaking, we should be able to kickstart some conversation. So. One message from the audience was from Pooja. Hey, Michelle, thanks for doing this. I always seem to be giving excuses. How do I overcome that?
Excuses. Can you give me an example of an excuse? That would really help me.
And Pooja, you can either jump in and speak, or you can continue to chat if that's easier either way.
Okay. I can tell you, I'll tell you something. When I was a professor, I thought that it would be crazy and stupid for me to become a musician. And so I don't know if this is exactly excuses, but I would tell myself it just didn't make any sense. It like what am I thinking? Why would I do that? It's not who I'm supposed to be. I have this PhD. You know, and I'll tell you what liberated me was seeing the look in my students' eyes when I liberated them to, because, I remember there was one student who, and I don't know if this is answering your question, and if it's not, I'd be happy to dig in more, but, you know, she came to me in tears because she wanted to go to graduate school and the professor across the hall had told her that she had to go. We were in California, and for some reason he told her that she had to go to a school on the East Coast, and she had a fiance, and she thought she was torn. Because he didn't want to go, and I said, why don't you just stay on the West Coast? You can have it all. You can have it all. I don't, And so she did, and she got married, and she did very well in her life. So I don't know exactly where your excuses are coming from, but sometimes excuses are just because you can't imagine, or somebody hasn't given you permission. And sometimes what you need to do is just give yourself permission. Um, Another reason for an excuse is, well, let me just let that land, actually. It's really good to give yourself permission to just do what you really want to do, even if you're just playing piano for 10 minutes a day. But another thing that I think keeps us in our tracks is fear. We're scared we're going to fail. We're scared we're not going to be good at that thing. We're scared we're not going to get that job. And you know what? Every person who's ever succeeded has failed a lot. It's sort of normal to fail. It's okay to fail. It doesn't feel good. I mean, believe me, when I fail, it never feels good. But I do love that advice from Oprah about, because she failed as a news anchor. I don't know if you know this, but she was a news anchor, and they actually demoted her because they said that she got too emotional when she was reporting the news. And so they demoted her, and they demoted her to being a daytime talk show host for just a little station. Well, we all know how that turned out, right? That thing that maybe looked like a weakness in her was actually a strength in another context. So sometimes we're scared we're going to fail, but it's okay because it's feedback about how to maybe change courses a little bit. I would love to hear an example of an excuse, because if I hear an example of an excuse, I can really dig in with that. Do you want to?
So there's more on the chat. She basically said, hey, I seem to either blame work or family of achieving personal goals, like taking a course and even attending this call. I think you started to touch on some areas that she was asking about, but that was the rest of her question.
Okay. Yeah. It's really hard for women because, we are given the story early on that we're supposed to put family first, and, and then our careers first. And somewhere in there's us, and we're not first. And a lot of us are under that pressure. And so we end up spreading ourselves too thin, which is referred to as a superwoman syndrome. And then you break your eye or whatever. But so here's the thing. And I know you've heard of this analogy before, but you know that analogy of, when you're on a plane, none of us are getting on a plane right now, but if the oxygen, if there's no oxygen and the mask drop down and your child is next to you, you're supposed to put the mask on yourself first and then your child, right? Because if you don't put it on yourself first, you could faint and then not be able to help your child. So here's the thing I would say. Rather than being angry at your family or blaming them or blaming work, it's really society and the way we were raised and the belief system we're in. That's a victim. And I don't mean to be passing any judgment. Believe me, there's no judgment here. But one thing I've learned when I'm doing that, it puts you in a victim mentality. It's happening to me. But what really can help you is even if, like, thank you for making time for this call this morning. Making 10 minutes to play the piano for me, it changes the course of my day. If it's possible for you to talk to your husband to make an arrangement where you get an hour or two a week to take a class you really want to take and have him take over. And just for, it's vital for your growth. It's better for your marriage, and it's better for you as as a mother too. So even an hour a week or 2 hours a week can make a big difference. So I would say try having that conversation. Look for that course. Get, like my thing, I Googled how to get on Oprah. Google a class you'd like to take and then talk to your husband about it, and like an hour a week to be able to do this. Please, it's so important to me. Making an arrangement like that can really slowly but surely change the course of your life so that you're moving more and more towards a direction of what makes your heart sing.
So this is kind of a real-time follow-up to her question. She said, I wanted to do this call. I woke up, I set everything up, but now my husband has to take a work call, and my 3-year-old daughter needs to be fed. She has to go potty, so I missed part of this meeting, and I'm not able to speak in. I feel guilty that I'm not giving attention to my daughter also for putting my intentions ahead.
I'm sorry that you've had a chaotic morning like that. No.
I just thought I would pitch in that, that guilt factor, it is so common, if you're working, you have that guilt factor because you're not giving attention to your kids. If you're not working, you have that guilt factor. So, just don't worry about it. Whatever you're doing the best for your kids. And trust me, they acknowledge it and they'll remember it long run. So don't worry, should be fine.
I want you to know that it's a cultural pressure too. And guilt is an internalization of, guilt doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help you and it doesn't help anybody around you either. But it is a way to internalize being controlled, actually. So it's a way of internalizing the control. I'm a bad mother. I'm not working hard enough. I'm not, attending to my child enough. And women are put in a very difficult situation because we're supposed to be doing so many different things. And it's still not equal. Men don't, they don't pitch in. I mean, there's so much research that shows, and maybe you're lucky and you have a husband that does, but in most cases, the men don't pitch in as much as women do at home. So that is a reality, and it is also a reality that you have the right to change that in your own home and to ask for help. And so this morning, I see that you're all rattled in the work call and all of that. Maybe having a discussion before the actual event that you want to attend and making sure that somebody else has your back, or that can help. But it is really important to realize that you're not alone. I gave a talk at Lean In 3 years ago down in Palo Alto, and heard a lot of women's stories. A lot of women wanted me to coach them. So many of them had these stories that of so many competing obligations. But the one thing I want to just really emphasize for you is that this is slowly changing in the world, and you are allowed to change that dynamic in your home. The feeling of guilt isn't going to help you do that. The feeling of guilt is just going to keep it in place. So if you can just take a deep breath, seriously, because guilt is in our bodies. Just like take a really deep breath and just let it out, breathe it out, breathe in opportunity and breathe out guilt, and just to give yourself a moment, give yourself some space to think about how you might change that dynamic a little bit in your life, one step at a time. I think it's really important that you do it. And I hope you do it. Any other questions?
And feel free to chime in. I'll just kind of mute and unmute just so there's no echo. I think it was a lot easier for people to speak that way.
You're welcome. I saw that. That's really amazing. I actually saw that with my eye. Thank you. Anybody else? Doesn't have to be directly about goals either. I'm pretty good. Oh, yes. Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Well,
One person said, thanks, I hope I do it. This is my first meeting with, looks like WIDS, maybe they mean Women in Big Data. Just want to remind folks that if you're interested in having a free superpower session with Michelle, you can visit her site, which I've posted in the chat window. at michellechappelle.com.
Still see some people on. Let me know if there's anything else you want. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Anything else, you guys? I think we just have a couple. You're welcome. You're welcome. A couple more people left here. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? I see. Okay.
All right. If there's anyone else online who would like to talk about a particular goal, if you have any questions, we still have about 11 minutes with Michelle. So please do feel free to unmute and chime in, and I'll just handle the meeting so that we are able to hear you. So go for it.
Looks like we just have a couple people left. Is that right?
We've got still a few people on. We've got a lot of thank yous, messages. Great job, empowering. Thanks for the inspiring talk, Michelle. So inspiring. I feel motivated to take small steps now toward my goals. So, all right, for those of you that are still on, if you're interested in part one, we have a recording of that, and any friends that you'd like to pass this along to, this session will be recorded, so it will be available for you to listen to again or tell more people about it. Also, another message to Michelle, thank you. We'll be in touch. Thanks, Women in Big Data, the team, for organizing this. Looks like we've got a few people on the call. I don't know if any of you want to chime in. Now's your chance to get in some questions, or if you prefer, like I said, you can do the superpower sessions and have one-on-one time with Michelle.
Well, the other thing, since I guess a couple people are still hanging on here, is there, one other thing you can do if you want to try it is to write a mission statement for yourself. Who do you want to be in this world? We've talked a lot about to-dos, like what you can do, the next step you can take in your personal life, in your professional life. If that feels like there's some resistance still, I do hope you do take those steps. But if there's some resistance still, one thing that helps is to make a mission statement, because it's more of a who you want to be, and then write it down. Like I'm still putting mine together, but I want to inspire people to find their superpowers and live. I don't want to copy Oprah, but I'm Oprah. Oprah's on my mind, so, and live their best lives, kind of thing. But really like to inspire people to find their gifts and lead happy, fulfilling lives. And I also myself, I want to lead a happy, fulfilling life that's balanced with friends, family, and community. So you can do something like that and write it down on a sheet of paper. The more specific, I'm just giving you an off the top of my head example, but it's something like a sentence long or a couple of sentences. If you want maybe mention about being a mother, a wife, and how do you see yourself? Like, what's your ideal balance? And then just carry that around in your purse, put it in your wallet, and remind yourself you're at well, many of us aren't driving now, but if you're at a stop sign and you're at a red light and you've got a moment, just take it out and read it. Read it every once in a while to remind yourself of who you want to be. And sometimes it just takes a little time for it to sink in, enough for you to feel that, yeah, I can become that person. Maybe I can take a step. So there's also the changing your mindset part of it. So that can help as well. So I just wanted to share that. And the more you can look at it, the better. And you can change it, you can alter it, you can edit it, you can refine it as you learn more and more about yourself. So that's another tip I'd like to share for anybody who's still listening and wants to learn more.
Yeah, just a comment. Vidya was saying that she just gave a talk on leadership in crisis this week on Tuesday. She'd love to share this with you. She'll be in touch. It talked about superheroes, and it was based off a survey she did on the leaders in her community. I wish, Vidya, if you want to chime in, we'd love to hear from you. But again, if you prefer to reach out to Michelle directly, that's fine as well. I can do the muting just so we can hear you and there's no echo.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I didn't quite understand all of it there, but it sounds really cool. So
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Sorry about that. I had kids playing, and really, I was trying to still attend to this call, so I have missed some portions of the call. And I thought, let me just put this on the chat window at least, so that my message is delivered in case I can't come in person. So. Yeah, lovely, conversation here, and I'm going to go back to the session recording from April because I didn't know about that. I'm from Women in Big Data London, and as I was trying to, think of some webinar or online session for EMEA, um, I got invited to do a keynote for Agile and Data London meetup group. So Tuesday, I gave a talk on leadership in crisis, and that was really based off one of my projects wherein I was talking to the other leaders in the larger global community. I'm was keen to find out what superpowers they associate themselves with, and I also discussed a honeycomb kind of a method to spotlight other areas of strengths and areas wherein one needs to introspect more and figure out how to manage the flaws or the kryptonites. So can't hear anyone now. I think it's muted.
Oh,
I do that
had
too.
muted Michelle just for echo.
So I was just gonna say I do that too with the kryptonite. That's a great angle. Yeah.
But I'm not a coach. I'm just because I've been in leadership roles, and it's something of a passion to kind of figure more out how what is happening with my peer level people, or what's going on, how are we going to figure out the future of work and innovation in a post COVID or the COVID world we are in. So maybe we can have a session, and you can help me if at all, if you have some time to give me some feedback on what I have been up to. But,
Thank you.
Thank you so.
Yeah, that sounds great. I would love to. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing too. It sounds like we're doing similar work. I appreciate that. I've been in leadership roles too, and I actually see this as a great opportunity. I mean, you can look at it as it is a crisis, but it's also a great opportunity. to invent something that's better than the way we've been doing it before. That's the way I like to look at it.
Yeah,
It's like
looking at your memoirs a couple of years later to see what was I doing, what were everyone else doing this time, and did we get it right or not. So I'm sorry, I'm going to mute myself and say goodbye here, or leave this meeting because there's no childcare, and I think my superhero kids are waiting for me. Thanks so much, and lovely to be able to be part of this session. And thanks everyone who's organized this as well. Bye then.
Bye. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And thank you, Michelle. It's a real privilege to have you. And, just as you had shared your very rich experiences, I think when the attendees do that also, that's when everyone benefits because we can really hear, what people are going through in real time. It sounds like future superheroes to come. But as you can see, right, folks have joined us from all over the world this time. So I'm so glad that we are able to reach out to different folks across the regions and also within Women in Big Data. So I will unmute you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. That was pretty cool.
So
With from all over the place. That's great. Awesome. I finally woke up.
I will.